think there were 5 of us, 3 of us in the back and 2 in the front. We were dragging State Street, and I wasn't driving, of course, because I was probably a little young even to be driving State Street. Well, not really. I was probably 15 and a half. We pulled up alongside another car, and somebody handed a beer out of a car, and I'd never had a beer before. I always loved the smell of beer. So it was, you know, I was going to taste my first beer, and it was warm. And it was an Olympia. It was an Oli. So I opened that beer, and oh, it was just the nastiest thing. I drank about 2/3 of the beer and threw it out. And then about 10 minutes later, I wished I had it back. Just that 2/3 of a beer did something to me. All of a sudden, I was comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't afraid to say whatever I wanted to say to my friends. You know, it didn't matter if they rebuked me or not. I was comfortable. I mean, I was okay with myself, and alcohol's what did that to me. And I knew right then that I needed more alcohol. And I knew I was going to drink again. It filled a hole that I didn't know I even had. It was like a week, maybe 2, before I got my hands on more alcohol. I had a friend that worked for the Capri restaurant, which was a pizza delivery place. He would close up every night, and he grabbed some beer out of the cooler one night, 2 6-packs, and we took my motorcycle, motor scooter actually, and went out to the sand dunes, and he drank, I think he drank 2 or 3 beers and threw up. I drank all of the rest. Oh, I felt great. By the time we got home, the sun was coming up, or at least it was light, and I was emptying the sand out of my shoes sitting on the front porch, and my mother came to the front door, and she was quite worried and wondered where I'd been all night. And I knew she knew, but she never said anything. I got a job in Wyoming working for the Forest Service. It was a summer job. And we were going to go up there and live in a camp and spray bug trees, infected trees. And so we went up there. Well, we didn't just go up there. First, on the other side of the Capri restaurant, there was this little convenience store, little store that just sold cigarettes, beer, and a few canned goods. And we had discovered that you could go from the restaurant over into the grocery store by lifting out the ceiling tile and just going over the wall. So before we went to Wyoming, on our way, we kind of stocked up with beer and cigarettes. We sort of robbed the store next door to the restaurant. So we're in Wyoming, and then so we're working for this outfit. It was a great time. Up by Jackson Lake Lodge, and up by Jackson Hole, Wyoming, gorgeous country in the Tetons. Oh, what a wonderful summer. And then we went over one day to Calder Bay, and a big thunderstorm comes over. We're over there to do our laundry, and a thunderstorm, big one, knocks out the power. And while the power's out, all us guys, they called us buggers because we were spraying bug trays. We kind of, a lot of the guys decided to steal stuff out of the stores because it was dark and it was nighttime. And I actually stole the dollar ring. It was even adjustable. You could, you know, squeeze it together to make it fit. When we got back to camp that night, the forest rangers had been there, and the guys that, another guy that lived in our tent with me said that the forest rangers had been here and searched everything, and I didn't think too much of it because I was wearing the ring. They couldn't have found that, so I didn't think too much of it, but I took the ring off and slipped it on my toe anyway. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, the forest rangers woke me up and took me and another friend of mine to jail, which was about 40 miles in the back of a pickup truck in the mountains at night, cold, no coats. I mean, it was awful. It was an awful ride to jail. It doesn't matter what you steal off of federal lands. It's grand larceny. It doesn't matter if it's 2 cents. So anyway, I'm going on trial for grand larceny. But they never found the ring, so they didn't have any evidence on me, and they had to let me go halfway through the trial. But I lost my job. My parents never knew I stole a ring. Nobody ever knew. They bailed me out for $500 and came up for the trial, and I swore my innocence to my parents' death. I swore my innocence. You know, and they're dead now, but I never did tell them that I actually stole the dollar ring. So I was going to a few times, but I never did, because I just thought they should believe in my innocence one time. You know, I just thought they should. Never was there a time when alcohol wasn't involved in the problems that I created for myself. There was a time when I was on drugs for about 9 months that was pretty dark, and I wish I wouldn't have had to go through that. I mean, that was just a total miserable waste of a life at that period of time. All I did was pretty much live in a closet doing desoxin, doing speed. That was a pretty rough time in my life. You know, and I don't know why I decided to do that. It was like I wanted to see how low I could get, and I don't know why, and I don't know how I quit, because we went to get some more speed. I paid for it.
I sat in the car waiting for my friend to come out with it, and I was going, man, I need this bad. I need this bad. And I went, you need it so bad, you better stop doing it. And that was just an entertaining thought. That wasn't a real thought. I mean, that wasn't me really considering it. That was just me going, man, because there was no way I was going to stop because I needed it. But he didn't come out with the stuff. So I sat there and I entertained the thought again. Maybe you shouldn't do it. You know, and the funny thing is, he was in there longer than he'd ever been in to get the speed. Because it's not like you go in there and use it and get high with everybody and then come out with it. You just go in and you buy it. But I don't know what took him so long. But when he came out, and I'd paid half for it, by the time he came out, I was like, there's no way. I'm not taking any speed. And you know what? Never touched it again. Never touched it again. But I sure drank a lot. I went and had a couple of cocktails with the guys, and normally I have more than a couple, but this particular day I didn't really drink very much, and I got home fairly early, and I'd meet the boys like twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. I mean, we didn't stay out all night or anything like that. We met like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and like we'd spend till 4, maybe 7 o'clock at the latest. And maybe sometimes later, maybe I'm in denial. But I came home this one day, and it was Friday. And actually, my birthday, I think, was on Sunday, my 40th birthday. I came home, and I was walking in the front door, and my wife started nagging me a little. And I'd asked this question before. I asked her, do you love me? Do you still love me? And her answer this time was, no, I don't think I do. I couldn't have been more than 2 feet in the door. I turned around and left. And that was the last time I came home. And I spent days, weeks, wishing that she would call me and say, I do love you, please come home. But it never happened. And I wanted to call her, but my ego was too big. And what am I going to do? Beg somebody to love me? I don't know. It was just so painful. She wasn't having me back. And, and I'd seen her a couple times, and a few times, of course, because my kids lived there, and I had to go see my kids, and those words just never came out of her mouth, and she was distant and uncaring, and every time I went over there, I left full of pain. Suddenly I had a panic attack and it wouldn't go away. It was awful. Whew. And it's like, I don't know if I can survive another one of those times. They're just so deep, dark. At the end of that day, I ended up in, the nickname for it's WIN. It's the Western Institute of Neuropsychology. Where I was. I remember having an interview with not a nurse, but somebody before they put me in to WIN. I actually fell off the chair. I was so miserable. I wanted to curl up on the floor and just disappear. It was horrible. I was actually laying on the floor in her office. I look back at it, and I think of it as an embarrassing moment, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't stay on that chair. She was interviewing me about what I was, coming into the hospital and how I felt and stuff like that. And I was just, I'm surprised they didn't put a straitjacket on me and throw away the key.
Alcohol was becoming miserable too. Well, I was miserable. I was living in my own homemade nightmare, I couldn't stop. Work 8 hours, drink 8 hours, sleep 8 hours. Was my life, and I pretty much could make it to work most of the time.
I'd been on this project for 3 years, building condos, and we finished the condos, and I needed to get a new job, but I couldn't stay sober long enough to go look for a job. because I'd get up in the morning and be hungover, so I couldn't go look for a job. So I think, well, tomorrow I'll go look for a job. I just got to stay sober today so I feel good tomorrow. But by 4 o'clock, I was at the liquor store. This house we lived in, you know, I poured my heart and soul into it to make a great place for my kids to grow up. Oh, talk about a lonely feeling. Driving, I'd be driving down 7th East and get to 27th South, and I was just going to be driving by 27th South on my way to whatever I was doing, but I couldn't drive past 27th South without thinking about home, and that my real home is just up that street. This is where I always turn to go home. I don't get to turn here to go home anymore. And you know, and I got to go see my boys, you know, and I'd go over and we'd play football in the front yard, and it was like I didn't even like to go in the house because I really didn't feel welcome in my own house anymore. And then after playing with my boys and playing football in the front yard and goofing off and laughing and joking and having a great time, I had to leave. It got to the point where it was hard for me to even go see my boys, even though I didn't tell them this at the time, and because I did keep coming to see my boys. But the pain of leaving and driving down the street, it was like almost not worth coming back because it hurt too bad to leave every time I had to leave. There was actually a day when everybody was in school, and I knew my shotgun was over there at the house. I don't know, it was just, I'd had enough. And I wasn't going to kill myself there at the house, but I was going to go someplace where I wouldn't make a mess. And I got my shotgun, and I always kept my shotgun shells hidden from the kids. So if they found my gun, they'd never be able to find the bullets, because I didn't want them playing with guns anyway. And my shotgun was pretty well hid in it all the time too. So, I mean, I was in such bad shape, I couldn't even find the shells. I couldn't remember where I put them. I looked in the shed, I looked all over the place. I looked everywhere for, and here I am, I feel like I'm robbing my own house, coming there to get my shotgun and my bullets, and nobody's home, and I'm sneaking in to kill myself. What a day. I knew if I walked into a store and went to buy shotgun shells, they would know, they would see it in my eyes that I was up to no good. when it comes right down to it, I don't, I didn't really want to die. I just wanted the pain to go away. I didn't want to die. I don't want to die. I just didn't want to be in a depression. I didn't want the panic attacks. It's just more than you can deal with at a certain point. I didn't want to die. There's no way I wanted to die. And you know what? I think the whole day I was talking to God, although I didn't know if I even believed in God at the time. I mean, I've always believed in God, but you're in such a bad state of mind that, it's like, well, God can't send me to hell for this because he knows what pain I'm in. But God, please help me out of this pain. And it's like, God did. He didn't help me right out of the pain. He helped me not find my bullets, I wasn't supposed to die. There's some reason why I'm here. I needed help from someplace, so I looked up in the phone book AA and called, I guess, central office and asked where there were meetings, and they told me, well, this address on Windsor Street, that's an old pizza parlor converted into what they call Fellowship Hall. And they have meetings there and socialize. And I went, oh, okay. So when's the next meeting? And I guess I'd called. It was about 4 o'clock. I needed a drink. Help me. I need a drink. And where's a meeting? Fellowship Hall. I went there. But on the way, I went to the liquor store because I knew that as soon as that meeting was out, I was going to get drunk because it isn't going to work. It isn't going to do anything. What's the point of this? But I'm going to try it anyway. So I go to the liquor store, go to this place called Fellowship Hall, get out of my car, start walking in. I really wasn't planning on quitting drinking. That wasn't what I went to AA for. I had no intention of quitting. It wasn't even in my vocabulary. I knew I was an alcoholic at that point, but I didn't want to quit. I just needed to slow down. And I'm walking up there, and there's all these people sitting out at this picnic table, and the meeting's going to start in about 30 minutes. And I get almost to the front door, and there's just too many people, and I'm going to turn around and go away. And this gal goes, hey, you're new here. Come over and sit with us, and we're going to go to the meeting in a few minutes, and you can go in with us. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding? And at that point, somebody had said something to me, so
I'm not going to turn around now. I'll say hi and whatever, and maybe I'll go to the meeting. So I ended up in my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was the most amazing thing. It was like that whole meeting was directed at me. It wasn't really, but it felt like everything they said, they were talking about me. It was about me. And all the talk about God, you know, I mean, there was some talk about God, I mean, because it's in the steps. It was just hard to believe. It was hard to believe that a place full of drunks would be talking about God. It just didn't make any sense, but it felt good to me. It felt real. And after the meeting, I sat outside with some people, and we sat out there till 2 o'clock, and that bottle of vodka underneath the seat of my front seat stayed there for 3 weeks. I went to a meeting every day. Well, I went to at least 3 meetings every day because I was unemployed. Had a job within 2 weeks. Was sober, was getting some of the cobwebs out of my head. And a case of the nerves hit me, and I pulled out my bottle, and it seems like I did that for a while. I'd make it about 3 weeks and then drink. I mean, the craving was just horrible. The craving. I'd just go out and sit in the restaurant area, go to meetings, and just hang on to my chair and not go to the liquor store. Just, you know, I'd go to 3, 4 meetings a day and just sit there and then I'd go home when it was bedtime and go to bed. But I never went home after work. I always went right there, straight to Fellowship Hall, but I couldn't hang out with anybody that I knew because I didn't want to drink. So I just stayed at Fellowship Hall. I just lived there until bedtime, and then I'd go home, go to bed, get up, go to work, back to Fellowship Hall. And at about 90 days sobriety, it was like my knuckles let go of the chair, and I was able to actually go do something else. It took about 3 months before the craving eased up enough to go, okay, now I can go and have a life. It isn't just the sitting in chairs that, I mean, it took a long time to get my head straight, the cobwebs out, but it isn't just staying sober that did that. It was being around other people who had the same problem as I did. I remember somebody saying that we all have our paths that we take, and that our path is okay. I had never really believed that before, but all of a sudden I knew it was true, that my path in life was just my path, and my path had led me here, and this is where I am now, and everything I've done in my past has led me here, and that my path was okay, and I didn't have to carry a lot of guilt about my path, because my path had led me to a place of phenomenal joy. When I quit drinking, I had made up my mind that if I couldn't find the joy that I first got from drinking in sobriety, then I would probably just go back to drinking, because there's just no point in being sober if you're going to be miserable. The whole is, well, this guy in AA used to say that a hole so big that the Chicago wind blows right through you. And it's kind of like a hollowness in you. It's an empty feeling, like your life just is meaningless. And there's the hole. It's the meaninglessness of life. Without God, the hole wouldn't have been filled. But it's within me that the hole was filled. I take my cats for walks and a dog. I have 5 cats that walk with me and a dog. And when I take them for walks about midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning, we walk up the street and I'm looking at the stars and the clarity of my head, the crispness of the sky and the stars and the darkness and the street lights and everything is so crisp and clear, and the fuzz in my head, there's no brain fuzz, there's no, and I'm walking up, I'm not staggering, it's just, I'm clear-headed and wide awake, and it's like, I feel so clean. I feel so even. I feel right with the world. And my dad, he was just, we'd go for drives and stuff, and he's going, look at that, isn't that beautiful? Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, God, it used to drive me crazy when I was a kid. But he was right, it was beautiful, and now I've catch myself doing the same thing. You know, I'm always, well, even with my own kids, I think I bugged them too about how beautiful everything was. You know, there's a smell. You can't put smell on paper, but, you know, somehow, or on canvas, and somehow, you know, sometimes when you see a really nice piece of art, you can almost smell it. If I can do that with a work of art, that's what I want. I still go to those same places all the time, over and over again, to see them in different light, to see it in the morning, to see it when it's cloudy in the afternoon, or when it's raining. Oh, you know, every place has a mood, 1,000 moods.
You know, when I was a little kid, I always pictured just being happy. You know, if I was looking at myself as a child and going, that's the guy I'm going to be someday right there. I wonder if I'd be happy with that. Because, you know, I wanted to have money. I wanted to have status. And I don't really have that. But I have everything I need. And I'm sure that I would be glad. I think if I was a kid, I would think, well, why aren't you making more money? Why didn't you do something else? I don't know. Because I think I just wouldn't have had a clue that you could be this happy without having lots of stuff. Stuff doesn't make you happy, though. What makes you happy is acceptance. Just accepting who you are, finally being comfortable in your own skin. If I was a kid, I think I would, looking at where I am now, I don't think I'd be smart enough to think that was okay. I wish this would have happened a long time ago, but it didn't. I mean, I wish I wouldn't have had to go through the pain. I wish I wouldn't have had to, you know, feel like I'd lost my family.
If there's one thing that's a constant in this world, it's change. And then I lost a girlfriend, and that's when I went back out for a year and a half. And the pain was too much for me to bear. I went back on my pity pot and crawled into a bottle for a year and a half. But you know, when I went back out, I understood that I could take God with me. And I watched the progression of alcoholism in my life when I went back out, and I saw all the stuff. I watched God work in my life. I watched alcohol work in my life. And I knew I was going to be back at AA, but slowly over a year and a half period of time, I found out that there was no way to drink and live the kind of life I wanted to live. And one day, sitting in a bar with a bunch of people who acted like they were my friends, playing pool, all of us our quarters up and all drinking out of the same pitchers of beer, all of us talking to each other and laughing and joking, and It was so unfulfilling. I realized that none of these people were my friends. They were just another acquaintance, all of us lonely, keeping each other company while we drank. I got up and laughed and never drank again. Oh, well, I'm one drink away. Let's put it that way. Hi, I'm Gary Snow.